Let's roll. Here we go.
Well, he has trouble with this. You got barbecue
The expectation is greater than the appreciation.
Not just different leagues.
Sorry guys, the bye week got hands, but welcome back to another week of chaos. Many of you, per usual, are feeling either jubilation or stacking more despair as the season from hell progresses. We've got a lot to slide through, so I guess we'll go ahead and get into it. If you think you can escape from the chaos, certain results prove that you don't choose when chaos strikes you, but rather it chooses when it comes after your beloved program. I mean, if the shit-ass Saints can find a way to win a game in the year 2025, anybody can win a game. Let's get into it. This poor inbred sack of diarrhea could use all the chaos they could get. The entire arc of Rich Rod 2 Electric Boogaloo has been nothing short of a brainless excuse of a football team attempting to play football outside of one game against a rival that's already moved on. The football god sent you a warning by scheduling your game past 10 o'clock Eastern, and I'm willing to bet a whopping majority of you refused to listen. What you got to see was a whooping on the behalf of a bear and the entirety of the Mormon Church. With the season already being over, now that you've won the backyard brawl, you're spending the rest of it playing a quarterback hokey pokey in an attempt to find the right one for the dumpster. The answer might be in Khalil Wilkins. He was far from a Pat White, but he's the greatest option you've got whilst the season progresses. Learn to live with it. BYU is undefeated and looks to remain so going forward. Kalani Sitake is clearly not satisfied. Every week he looks like an admin of the school when they hear the word sex. Seems to be effective, as they've taken care of business with no drama up until now. Kentucky sets as a permanent reminder of how the SEC is not as depth-filled as the media wants to exacerbate. Just like every year in the brawl, Kentucky and Georgia always find a way to make one of the ugliest games you'll watch of the season. The big difference is one is talent and one is football self-mutilation. Kentucky football is the football equivalent of hurting yourself in confusion. At this point, it's highway robbery that Mark Stoops makes $9 million for this type of effort on the field. Whatever you were hoping for in terms of production on the field has been reserved for the defense. While Georgia didn't come out as hot as expected after their yearly death versus Bama, Kentucky right now is literally an offense for decoration. Your average paraplegic did more running than the Wildcats did on this day, which in turn ended in the expected scenario. Makes it 16 in a row for Georgia against the Wildcats. Most impressively, they covered the spread in the process. They live again to haunt my dreams and probably Mickey Mouse their way to the playoffs. Just a reminder that basketball season is getting closer and closer, where it'll only be a matter of time until Kentucky sees another Joker in action. It's Wednesday as this video is being made, and I cannot figure it out for the life of me how Bill O'Brien is still employed as the head coach of the Golden Eagles. Performances like the ones we've seen from him as of recently are ones that programs fall harder than the Roman Empire because of. I don't know how you excuse this other than pointing out Pitt had a new quarterback out there on the field. I mean new there literally because it was a true freshman slinging the football on the field. Mason Heinz-Schnell, the savior of the reputation of Pennsylvania football, and probably the most Pennsylvania quarterback I've ever heard of. If nobody else in the state can do anything, you'd best rely on a guy like him. Over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. The Pitt offense has done a thing again. But yeah, the Boston College you're witnessing now is ungodly. I don't care if it's year 2 of this era. This is no excuse for a performance this unbearable to look at. I would say switch your quarterback too, but you tried that and it went just about as well as everything else you tried. Useless. Boy, Kirk Cignetti has really got to be flexing his muscles now. It was the Illini's job to fall off a cliff and die the moment they were beat down by the Hoosiers. Instead, they continue to show a strong offensive performance and eliminate the narrative of this win being a bad one for Indiana. Granted, the Soilermaker defense is the Bonnie Blue of college football and just lets anyone in. But you take the wins where you can get them. Luke Altmaier continues to sling the football with minimal effort, with the added benefit of being one of the only few quarterbacks without any picks. That only lasts for one more week as the Eli Buck awaits. But it's a stat he can be proud of for the time being. He went like the trophy and turned himself into a cannon for this brawl. Ryan Brown and the Purdue offense did their best to keep up, but in the end the effort was futile. Hank Beatty is a god and will not be denied his dominance. Until next week, again. For what it's worth, this is your first back-to-back winning series over the Soilermakers since 2002. So even with the defensive malfunction and slow starts, take the happiness where you can get it. It wasn't that long ago you were in Purdue's seat. It's never a bad time to give some love to the military men. They fight for freedom, and some play half-watchable football. Army isn't here, so that confirms it is indeed watchable. And the added bonus, Blake Horvath! he had another game where he shredded it through the air and had 130 yards on the ground too. And despite the effort from Air Force to compete, they were fighting the uphill battle seemingly the entire time. I guess when the government shut down, it shut down all the defensive units with it too. But as I'm sure you know all too well, in games like these, somebody has to win. Following one of the most insane turnovers I've seen, it was followed by an attempt by Navy to solidify it in the most non-Navy way imaginable.
Heidenreich in motion. Horvath gonna throw it, and it's caught! First down!
Truly a sign of the end times. The midshipmen are doing just like they were last season, with a 5-0 start. If they continue, they will eventually end up ranked before inevitably getting disemboweled by Notre Dame again.
Expectation is greater than the appreciation.
Time to go to the retirement home, old man! Are there still people out there who still thinks he's got it? Brother, the only thing he's got right now is dementia. This man could have retired as a legend for the Patriots and football as a whole, but instead what we're witnessing is the fastest fall of a reputation. Cinder the VTuber had a lesser fall from grace than what we're witnessing right now. It takes a lot to make this Clemson team look competent on the field, but they've managed to find a way by sucking as hard as anyone has sucked. The Tar Pit offense has become such a mess that it only took half the game for the entire stadium to empty out. Everyone would much rather be anywhere else than sitting here in the heat watching a half-dead program flail around in agony. The Mac Brown days look stronger in hindsight. At least that man had some sort of idea of what he was doing, or where he was at. I've said it as a joke before, but I think Jordan Hudson coaching probably would have been the better alternative. Clemson's season might be over, but at least they had a game where Cade Klubnik finally looked good, and by extension, they themselves look a whole lot better because of the team they were playing today.
I went to that game, and that was one of the saddest feelings I've had in university so far, and I've failed midterms before, so that's saying something.
Iowa State has been playing with fire for what's felt like the entire season, coming close to that eventual L but still managing to survive and thrive the following week. We all sort of had a feeling about this one though. While we didn't predict it, we weren't shocked by what came. With the home field in their side, Cincy went to work on the Cyclones immediately. Brendan Sorsby ass-blasted the defense and got the Bearcats to a 17-0 lead. From there, everything was a game of catch-up for Iowa State. They were seemingly cooked the moment they couldn't even stop the run game. The failure that was the first half plus the fourth down collapses led to Cincy keeping their lead maintained for longer. But Rocco Purdy did his part in keeping the game as entertaining as the Big 12 can offer. Pulling within 8 points with 2 minutes left to go, they at least kept it a brawl before the inevitable, unexplainable Big 12 death. No team in this conference is allowed to be happy as history has shown. Because of this outcome, the Cyclones have been reduced to an EF2 until proven otherwise. If you're like me and know Cyclones as hurricanes instead of tornadoes, they can join Miami as the tropical depressions. Hope you enjoyed that coverage of the strong offensive brawl from earlier, because here's the complete opposite. Wisconsin fans were able to feel a sense of joy and happiness, as off of Dylan Jones, they were able to punch the goal line first. This was then followed by around 52 minutes of Wisconsin football. Agonizing and painful to watch. Their offense, as they usually do after the first drive, packed up the buses and fled back to Madison for the next one. Despite the Wolverines having a bottom-tier offense in the conference, they are noticeably improving on that side. Bryce Underwood is actually developing into a quarterback that's useful. It's better than many quarterback situations around the world for certain. Up against a Luke Fickell offense that he'll probably be trying to sustain permanently, he did more than enough to solidify another dub for Michigan. With Justice Haynes relinquishing the demons of the Michigan run game being shut down, the Wolverine offense has life, especially when you consider that the Badgers' will to fight is even to France in world wars. They surrendered prematurely, choosing to wave the white flag and leave the body, mind, and spirit in the locker room. When do you plan on leaving your coach behind, I wonder? There are always certain teams in the conference you can rely on to give you unpredictable, entertaining wars on the gridiron that you never would have expected to be the best ones to watch of the week. But here we are once again with the bad news Bears. Sawyer Robinson had himself a day, with 300 plus yards passing. But the problem was that Avery Johnson remembered he once had a thing called talent, and chose to also go off with 300 yards passing and 72 more on the ground. Eventually, the gas ran out for Robertson and the KSU offense took control of the ballgame. But then, just when you least would have expected it, Matt Wells happened. Baylor came alive in the money quarter and the Wildcats suddenly found themselves on the back foot. Just when you thought they were going to get a win to save their season, Robinson did just enough for the Bears to drive down the field and let Connor Hawkins do a funny.
Liberty Hill, Texas. The kick is low. Does it have the distance? It does!
I would say this was the most pain Baylor has caused for them, but 2012 happened. so that deconfirms that theory. 2 turnovers for 0 points, 14-point lead going into the fourth quarter. None of that matters because Chris Kleeman forgot how to coach. In other news, what is Dave Aranda? Because that ain't the defensive coach y'all told me about. You gotta give the Hokies credit for one thing and one thing only. They found just about every unique way to lose a football game, getting outscored, refusing to score themselves, but now they themselves get beat by self-inflicted ref ball. Constant personal fouls and horrifically timed situations led to the Turkeys being quickly on the losing end. It takes a lot to get outplayed by a hurt Robbie Ashford, but Kyron Drones has indeed found a way to do so. With no run game or defense to rely on for the most part, this Hokie team got slapped around and cooked again. While the effort at the end was certainly admirable, there's no head coach to lead them to complete the comeback. Not that Brent Pry had that power anyway. If there's anyone who knows how to lose games like these, you'd best guarantee it's Virginia Tech. Let this be a lesson to everyone in Tank Conference. Beating Dave Dorian doesn't mean you're good. Losing him makes you bad. Beating him means you're probably still bad. The fact it was this close at the end sets up more as a warning for Wake. They still have something to play for, not ending up in the toilet bowl. Similar situation to Virginia Tech against Wake Forest, but the Desert Cats did what they needed to against the brain-eating amoeba. Sometimes firing your coach does your team some good and builds back a winning culture later in the season. This result could not be said for the Cowboys. Mike Gundy getting the boot seems to have removed any sense of hope or spirit out of this poor squad. It's more of the same. If I gave you a synopsis of this game, it would be just like last week and the week before that. Another game where you get dominated from the word go. Noah Fafita did all he wanted to and more. Almost 400 yards on the day. Just an absolute destruction as always. In fact, the beatdown was so horrendous that we got to see something we only see at this time from the ether of the Arizona QB room. Coming back from Wisconsin, Locktober is back. It went about just as expected. An interception was his contribution. Keep in mind, Arizona is 4-1 with an outside shot of the Big 12 title if they continue to win. No matter what happens, at least you're not the new gen Kansas and in the dirt like the broken Cowboys. There was a lot on the line here for both squads. Vandy is undefeated and finally getting into the gauntlet part of their schedule, and Alabama needed this win to prove they aren't going to fall off again right after beating Georgia. The college football world was torn on a winner. It takes a lot to make someone root for Alabama in favor of Vandy, or vice versa. But if one man was able to pull that off, it was Diego Pavia. He's only the second Commodore player we've seen with an ego high enough to badmouth the Crimson Tide. The last one resulted in 59-0. However, unlike Tommy Castellanos, Pavia could also not back up his talk. He gave it his all, but eventually Vanderbilt's worst enemy came into play: the talent fee. Vandy did well to prove they aren't frauds or had a fluke game last season, but the effort they had was not enough to get the win in Tuscaloosa. Plus, how else do you plan on countering the Caden Proctor move? You don't. That's the answer. Pavia practicing his kneel down before the game certainly helped Homer Simpson on the other side. So I guess Bama can thank you for that. What you're witnessing with Syracuse is what Oklahoma fans are most scared of going into the rest of the season. Losing the Jelly Bean has done so much damage to the fluidity of the Syracuse offense, and they've gone from a once strong offense to an absolute potato. The peeling continues against an undisciplined but talented Horsey squad. It was clear that Ricky Collins was not ready for the job as the starting quarterback. They might as well be two different teams in two different leagues. If you take out the fourth quarter, this was a dominant performance by the Horsey squad. It's impossible for you at this point to repeat what you did last season, but you can take pride in knowing that you're still competent in the game of football. Keep pushing forward, and maybe you can get out of the ACC network. There's got to be something Fran Brown can do to undo the pain and agony of what they're going through. If this continues, you'll be able to smell the stench from the other side of the conference, in California. Well, this was certainly unexpected. Maryland is still competent in the game of football. Not only that, but they're performing extremely well. Young talent Malik Washington is doing a great job slinging the football. The defense is shutting down Damon Williams in the Husky run game. While they don't look like the best team of all time, they're still playing complete football when they shouldn't be. It's almost like nobody told them what month it was. It's October.
Quick throw, and it's a touchdown. Boston breaks in without hesitation. And Williams taking a shot. Robot, and Jonah Coleman, quick catch, steps out. Coleman leaps, goes down, back foot, throws it, incomplete.
Like clockwork. You saw their realization in real time. Just as the month turns, the turtle runs out of space and walks and hides in the shell. It's like the opposite of Green Day. They fall asleep when September ends. See you next year! So, I might have made a mistake. I'm not the only one, but we all made a pretty hefty mistake here. After the Ohio State game, I gave Arch Manning a lot of leeway. It was against the #1 defense in the country. After the aneurysms against several low-quality teams, I still gave him time to get it together. It wasn't until I saw him and the Longhorns get beat by Billy Napier that I realized Texas is back. Back to sucking at football. We all see NFL quarterbacks that were legends in college shit the bed and fall apart in a short time span. We're witnessing the high school to college version of that. Was the name all it took for people to hype him up? Not sure. Actually, yes I am. But what we do know is that this was a disparaging performance we're seeing week in and week out. The hype train derailed and crashed somewhere out of bounds long ago. Texas just sucks now. They don't even have a defense to rely on anymore because it turns out they're just as much of a mess. Steve Sarkisian's tone deafness in the press conference makes him out to be even more of a clown than he already was. Yeah, who would be good enough to beat Florida on the road in Gainesville? Ever heard of South Florida, Sark? And before you ask, no, I'm not giving credit to Florida. Not because they don't deserve it, but because they don't want it. This was their worst possible outcome. They gave leverage to Scott Strickland to keep Billy Napier around. They've been wanting us firing for the longest time, and yet he's back once again. And you know what, Florida? I give you credit for that. Thank you. Anyway, Texas is dead. Horns down. Who in the absolute hell can outdo something like this? You gotta be a real big game loser to do that. Yeah, big game loser. What's with the long pause? The battle everyone has been waiting for in the Tank Conference. Two juggernauts fighting for dominance in the ACC, and it was everything we hoped it was. In the game of yardage, Louisville was no doubt the winner, as Miller Moss doubled the amount of yards through the air. But as Chandler Morris has shown in every performance not named NC State, he's got the clutch ball to keep them toe-to-toe with the opposition. What tipped the scales in favor of the Cavs once again is the clutch ball on the opposite side. The defense got them a scoop and score and a pick six to keep that pressure on the undefeated Cardinals. But despite this pressure, Louisville was undefeated for a good reason. They don't die when down. They fight back. This resulted in ACC chaos overtime being brought to our attention in the later hours. After contested catches and whatnot, the Cardinal offense stagnated for the sake of a field goal, letting Virginia prove that they are worthy of their ranked stature.
Freshman Kalen, direct snap, Taylor, touchdown! Virginia wins it in overtime for the second week in a row!
Truly a glorious time in college football. The Cavs are one of the scariest teams to ever face in overtime. Back-to-back wins over undefeated teams. Louisville flees back to irrelevance as soon as they had the chance to be remembered for something. Needed that undefeated mark for people to remember you even existed. Well, now that top teams are dropping like flies, it looks like we're right back to gaslighting the general public into the Notre Dame narrative. Is this team really worthy of the playoffs that they went out? No doubt they at least look a little better, but only the defense is worthy of that playoff stature. CJ Carr was borderline pedestrian in this ballgame, missing open receivers and making horrendous throws overall. The Irish were at least able to run the football again, but considering the core they brought back, should that be a surprise? What in the world happened to Jeremiah Love? He should be shredding through these fools like a paper shredder. What in the hell are we looking at? One thing we can all agree on is that these players had a better day than Maddox the Madman. Bro played like he was mad at himself. No touchdowns and 4 interceptions are the type of stat you'd see at Kentucky. Might have to make that Notre Dame video sooner than expected. He made Chris Ash look like an elite coordinator, and you can only blame ref ball for so much of that. Personal foul, we just kind of want to throw when we don't actually know what the penalty is, but 15-yard penalty, automatic, first down. Good lord, I hope that doesn't become a reoccurring theme on this channel. Go away! It's a great thing this was buried between the afternoon and primetime slate. For the sake of us college football fans, it should be a game that was played and never spoken of again. Michigan State trotted out an offense for fun, and yet somehow Nebraska still kept it close. Aiden Childs effectively handed them the ballgame with multiple turnovers. I'm surprised his pants weren't entirely brown by the end of the third quarter. Nick Marsh might as well have been the starting quarterback. Maybe he'd be a playmaker if he actually get his hands on the ball. Doesn't appear to happen though because Childs can't throw. Dylan Mahomes spent the entire game behind a paper tiger offensive line, but again, when the opposition is continuously handing you drives, eventually you'll capitalize. As ugly of a win that was, Nebraska survives and continues to make me question how they managed to survive against Cincinnati. Watching the special teams on both sides had me contemplating watching UMass football. As I said last week, that undefeated record being held for the Cougars after this week was nothing more than a pipe dream. Any team that struggles against a winless Beaver team is nothing more than fool's gold that would get exposed against the might of the first ever Texas Tech defense in existence. The domination arc continues for the Red Raiders. The opposition of the Chaos Conference is slowly losing squads capable of competition with this team. Another game with 500 yards of offense and a complete shutdown of the other team's offense. Give credit to them where it's due. There's plenty of teams of title level talent out there who are completely falling apart on the field. Joey McGuire's squad is doing the complete opposite. They're doing what they are supposed to and nothing less. The top 10 is in their grasp as the rest of the season awaits. It's certainly no easy road, but a team this strong has the potential for it all. Plus, they get to watch the other teams in the state shit all over themselves. They're waiting for A&M's turn now. Houston tried to fight, but if you throw two different quarterbacks out there with a QBR lesser than the baby's average IQ, you were cooked from the start. At least you're 4-1 competitive in the conference. Don't turn into Maryland and start losing out. Virginia's beatdown in overtime has given us the return of the Tank Knowles, and they are certainly tanking alright. In fairness, their opposition did like Texas Tech and finally tried to invest in a defense. Castellanos and the rest of the offense had no answer against the might of their refurbishment. Just as with the other rival of the state, the Canes did the bare minimum on the other side to secure their position in the winning column. Carson Beck obliterated the defensive backfield and did something unbelievable. He had a game with no interceptions. He simply went out there and played like he was trying to impress a Cavender twin. With a weapon like him and guys like Ruben Bain on the defense, just how could the Canes ever lose? I know the answer. Crystal balls! Super Mario did his damnedest to go limp enough in the fourth quarter to blow the game in the most Miami way possible, but all it did in the end was help degenerate gamblers who voted against the spread. This quickly takes FSU out of the title conversation, but there are still leagues ahead of last year's team as long as everyone doesn't get hit by a meteor or something. Just how in the world is Miami gonna blow the conference this time? The Jayhawks have proven that they too are a much better team than previous. While they haven't been able to go out of their own way defensively, they've more often than not been able to put reliance on the power of Jalen Daniels. Today was no exception to that rule. However, they find themselves in a bit of trouble here, as their opposition's amalgamation of an offense was pulling out all the tricks in an attempt to keep their season's hopes afloat. Both offenses were confusing to witness, even to themselves, but Lance Leopold put his hopes and dreams on the talent he built with the Jayhawks, and eventually he was able to come back and turn the game into the worst outcome for both coaches, a one-score game. Now it's just a matter of which coach was more of a one-score failure. Scott Frost's first mistake was letting Kansas come back into the game. His second mistake was letting them take the lead in the third quarter. His final mistake was not scoring before the money quarter, as it led to something I'm sure he's all too used to.
Towards here. Fancher. Incomplete!
With this win, the state of Kansas has complete dominance over something for once. Losing to both of these teams goes to show UCF fans are getting ready to lose all hope again. Wait until you get beat by West Virginia to do that. It wasn't that long ago Deion Sanders began his Power 4 college football tenure beating up on TCU in a high-scoring brawl. I'm sure the Horned Shit posters have been desperately waiting for their chance to finally get the jump on the team that's given them so much hell since then. With these two offenses once again meeting on the gridiron, there were some hoping for similar entertainment, but Colorado's offense is currently being wasted in the NFL, so the best this game can do is another Josh Hoover deep bomb. That was the most entertaining and most successful part of the game for TCU. Colorado ain't got anyone back there that can do anything about it. Besides, you can't run the football as shown by the stats you presented there. If you all would just play the "F it, Eric McAllister down there somewhere" game, he'd probably be unstoppable against defenses this week in the backfield. Off of his hands and Josh Hoover's boldness, TCU still has an outside shot of Big 12 contention if the passing game can stand strong. Colorado has a shot of something if the passing game can exist. Maybe Shador deserved that retired jersey. Remember that one time Minnesota had an offense that blew us away? Ohio State sure as hell doesn't. Watching Minnesota trying to do anything in this game was the football equivalent of waking up with your bed on fire. They were in a losing situation before the game even kicked off. Disastrous as it was to watch Drake Lindsey's run fall apart this hard, there was never an outcome where you win this game. If there were to be any lower tier Big Ten teams to drop Ohio State, it sure as hell wasn't going to be the 75 Merchant and PJ Fleck. Not only did the defense bury their offense, but Julian the Super Saiyan had a phenomenal game through the air. 300 plus yards, no turnovers, and even Carnell Tate did a whole lot of something. Exactly what you could ask for from a quarterback from his position. To the shock of nobody, the defending national champs look like they're the team to beat in 2025. Nobody's been able to score more than 10 points against this defense. Not sure who'll be able to pass that, but I guess we'll find out in due time. Minnesota might be able to undo the curse of 7-5, but only because another curse looks to be coming undone in the process. Well, so much for making Tennessee look good, huh, State? The offense that ran up and down the field on them last week turned to paste against the might of the Aggie defensive front. They outright tortured Blake Shapen through the entire experience. The once strong run game was reduced to dust, and it got worse the moment this happened. The fluff was down. From that moment onward, there wasn't much State could do other than accept their fate. Through the struggles, Marcel Reed put together enough scoring drives to keep the lead far enough in their favor to seal the deal. Thus, we are now introduced to something we otherwise would have never expected: a top 5 Texas A&M team. Battered Aggie syndrome has never hit as hard as it does right now. It's like they're expecting something to happen, they just don't know when or how. Just enjoy the good times as they are, Aggies. Mike Elko is getting you to places Jimbo could only do in the preseason. In the dark of the night, when only the most degenerate fans were watching, Duke football went across the country and did what Cal is used to seeing out of their football team: a giant whooping. At least for the 3 quarters that came after the first. If Cal and JKS played like they did in the first, this would have been a game they could have won. But alas, when you turn off the gas and unplug the controller, this right here tends to be the result. Daria Mensah turned into a god among men and proceeded to drag the Golden Bear defense up and down the field time and time again. He was merciless in his approach, and it showed in the final score. Cal really had 3 perfect drives and then proceeded to fall off a cliff and never return. Truly no better synopsis of California football, honestly. I feel like marking off the entire state of California in football championship contention at this point is a great idea. San Diego State is the best they've got. There's your recap of the week, everyone. The season may be long and the road treacherous, but we are almost halfway through the season, so enjoy it while it lasts. Here's your top 25 for the week. You know, when I look at this, I get the feeling that there might have been something I was missing. What could it be, though? Oh, yeah! How could I have forgotten? We have to give a special congratulations to Memphis. There will be many that will join their position in the coming weeks, but they are the first team in the space of college football to win 6 games, and thus, they have become bowl eligible. Alright! They're also a front runner for the G6 spot in the playoffs. No pressure or anything, just know the world is rooting for you, and Arkansas probably too. They thank you for firing Sam Pittman.
Some dominant wins. 6 wins. Now, actually. And now you head into the bye week. Get to tune some things up. Get some guys healthy. It's a great place to be for Memphis and Ryan Silver.
Reality is we've gone from an average football team to a good football team to a great football team, and we've worked really hard to do those things. But we're not an elite football team. Reality is we've gone from an average football team to a good football team to a great football team, and we've worked really hard to do those things. But we're not an elite football team.
Lead this season as well. They might have one right here. Reaching for the pylon.
We're not an elite football team.
Touchdown, UCLA. Nico fires.
We're not an elite football team.
His legs here. Yes, he will.
We're not an elite football team.
Iamaleava. And he's in again. Touchdown. Iamaleava scans the field. Nico's going to take off. Nico to the end zone.
We're not an elite football team.
Touchdown. Iamaleava. Nico. Look out. Got away. Throws.
We're not an elite football team.
Touchdown. Quasi Gilmer, I should say. 2-point conversion. There's the hook. And the lateral. And the ball game is over.
Reality is we've gone from an average
Bruins of
football team
UCLA at
to a
home
good football
with their
team,
first game of the
to a great
year.
football
They
team.
carry
We've worked really
Jerry
hard to do
Newhouse
those
off the
things.
field.